Coming up, we look back at the dominant performance for the New Jersey Devils, taking down the Montreal Canadiens on the road 5-2 and ahead to those Washington Capitals. Can the Devils go back-to-back W's and 3 in a row? We dive in coming up next. Yes, sir. It is DPL, the Devil's Puck Luck Podcast, where we are your hosts. Over here, Adam Armbrecht. Over there, Danny McDonough. And everywhere, live on YouTube, as we go ahead and take a look back and a look forward, Danny, coming off of what was, there were moments, as there always will be in games, that you want the Devils to clean some things up, but arguably their most impressive performance, and right at the center of it all, is a guy in Jack Hughes who is starting to eye a historic level pace early in this season.
Yeah, unbelievable from Jack Hughes, unbelievable from Tyler Toffoli. I think if we erase the first 8 minutes of that game, I think it was absolutely their best game, 100% hands down in their first five. So, that's Devils hockey. That's the hockey that we're looking forward to this season. They are a juggernaut offensively. And even if they're not clicking in the first 10 minutes of the first period, we can recover quickly. You saw Montreal get a little tired. They're coming off a back-to-back. They got a little tired in the second and third period, and the Devils took advantage of it, which is exactly what we need to do.
Yeah, and I think, too, you often talk about this when it comes to back-to-backs, and I think it was 3 out of 4 days for Montreal. Well, you expect them to be tired, but the Devils hadn't played in a couple of days, so you expect the Devils to be a little rusty. So early in that game, you're thinking, well, this isn't quite the way I want this script to go here. But as the game moved along, to your point, it just seemed to continue to go in the Devils' favor. By the way, Montreal came out and scored first in that game. They've scored the first goal in 5 out of their 6 games this season. There's been something at least impressive about the way Montreal has tried to come out and start games. They're going to be a fun team to watch this year, understanding they have a lot to figure out. Primo in goal last night. There was a lot of things happening on the Canadian side of it that you were just kind of like, okay, there's something here that if you're a Canadiens fan, I think this season has started far better than you would have anticipated possibly.
Yeah, I think Primo played pretty well for the Canadiens. He's only 3-12-1, I believe, in his first, 16, 17 games, whatever it is, as an NHLer. But, that kid has some promise. He's a young kid still. I think he's going to be okay. And he played pretty well. He had some really good saves. Nico Heischer's wraparound right there, too. You remember early on in the game, I remember that play. That was very good.
Sprawling across the net.
Yeah. Listen, he's a good young player, young goaltender. And I think the Canadiens are really – I think the Canadiens are going to be good in the years to come. Marty St. Louis is a great coach. He was a great player. I really like him leading that team. And, I have nothing against the Canadiens ever. I always root for the Canadiens if they're not playing the Devils. I think that a lot of Devils fans do because of the Marty Brodeur factor.
Sure.
But they're going to be all right. They're still going to have some struggles this year. But I think the Devils really took advantage of tired legs like we're talking about. And again, special teams. What else can we say? This is going to be one of the best power plays I think that we've seen in the NHL in a long time.
Yeah, Alexander Holtz, who got it technically after the first power play had ended there, but it's right on the doorstep, and then they convert others along the way as well. We mentioned there at the top with Jack Hughes becoming the first NHLer with 14 points in his first 5 games played in the season since Mario Lemieux, going all the way back to 2000, 2001. I'm almost surprised by that stat from the standpoint that the NHL has evolved. It's been a long time since they've been more offensively driven. I'm shocked that we're talking about 20 plus years between a stat line like that and what Jack has done so far. The beauty that I think you've seen in his game is it's the both and. Yes, he's scoring some goals, but he's also setting the table. And I think that's what we talked about coming into the season, an opportunity for a player like that to garner a ton of attention. And then it's up to everybody else to be ready, to have your stick on the ice, ready to take those shots when he gives them to you.
Listen, Jack's going to score 232 points. He's on pace for it. So, he's going to destroy every
Mark it down.
No, it's unbelievable to see it. And to your point, you would be surprised a little bit that, with the way the NHL has kind of evolved, like you said, that, you would expect more points to be had early on in the seasons from different players like McDavid, like Matthews. But, man, if you actually sit back and think about it, the point pace and what he's doing, Jack Hughes, is one of the most special things I've seen in a long time, from an offensive player. if McDavid's hurt, and for any kind of extended period of time, Jack is he's going to win the heart. That's how good this kid is. He's getting better and better and better every season. And the fact that, to your point, if he's not scoring goals, he's going to be setting up four. And their primary assists, it's not like their secondary assists. He's involved in every single play, it seems,
Yeah.
from the naked eye that the Devils make offensively. And that's it's great. Obviously, you want the secondary scoring, you want the complementary players to step up when Jack has nights where he's not going to get any points, which, listen, let's face it, it's going to happen. There is going to be a game, Devils fans, that Jack Hughes will not get a point. It's going to happen. Okay. But obviously, it's unbelievable to see. But for me, what the most incredible thing to see yesterday was his defensive performance. The way he was back checking and literally pickpocketing the Montreal Canadiens players was absolutely unbelievable.
Yeah, he had that sequence there. I'm gonna forget who he pulled the pocket on here. I had dropped down the note last night, tracked back, as you said, picked the pocket, turned it back around, one long pass. I think it's on one of the Tyler Toffoli goals. Great outlet, two-line pass from him. And it's to your point when we talk about this with some of the defensive guys, excuse me, and being smart on where they are on the ice. Jack has shown the ability, as we know, the guy, when he dials it up, the motor is on and it doesn't switch off until that third period comes to an end. We'll talk a little bit more about Tyler Toffoli coming up here in a second. And then I think the performance of the defensive players, specifically the blue line in the offensive zone, what were things that we mostly liked that they did very well almost all the way through, and a couple of instances that obviously led to some easy opportunities for Montreal. We'll dive into that in just one moment. But before we do, let's talk about our friends over at DraftKings. My goodness, you guys know we are we're approaching almost the midway point of the NFL season, and DraftKings Sportsbook is helping new customers along with a strong offer of betting. Just $5 on any game this week, and you get $200 instantly in bonus bets. And DraftKings isn't stopping there. All customers can take advantage of a sweetener offer every single game day throughout October. So this will be the last opportunity to cash that in as well. You know that if you're over there looking at DraftKings, man, Thursday night football, let's get in on it, Danny. If you were talking Thursday night football, you got to do something here. Buccaneers, Buffalo Bills, Bills laying 8.5. You want the action? You laying it? Are you disgusted by the Bucks?
It's in Buffalo?
That's right.
Nah, Buffalo's going to absolutely crush them. Coming off two bad games, they're going to crush them. So I'm laying the points. I might buy the half point to -8.
Ooh, interesting. I would take the Bucks. I don't know why, because I saw the Giants hold the Buffalo Bills to just 14 points a couple of weeks ago, and they lost to the Patriots. So I think the Bills are due to tumble. Maybe they don't even make the playoffs. I'm joking, but still, you get in on the game day greatness by downloading DraftKings Sportsbook app right now and use promo code
THPN.
New customers can score $200 instantly in bonus bets when you bet just $5 on the NFL. That's promo code
THPN.
only on DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. The crown is yours. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER or visit www.100gambler.net. In New York, call 877-8-HOPE-NY or text HOPE-NY to 467-369. In Connecticut, help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org. Please play responsibly on behalf of Boot Hills Casino and Resort. Licensee partner Golden Nugget Lake Charles. 21 age plus, varies by jurisdiction. Void in our friends to the north, Ontario, Canada. Bonus bets expire 168 hours after issuance. See sportsbook.draftkings.com/football terms for eligibility and deposit restriction terms and responsible gambling resources. All right, so we were saying there about what we've seen from this team, what we really saw from this game. Now, there was an instance when the Canadians got to go back because something they had done very successfully, defending the blue line, Dougie Hamilton, Siegenthaler stepping up, really congesting that. It's what led to that third period and even in the second period as well, where they were holding that offensive zone, really grinding down the Canadians on their tired legs, as you mentioned at the top. And then they split the difference and they got down in there and got an odd man rush and scored a quick goal that made it 4-2 at the time. Outside of that, though, I do think that fundamentally, this is the critical part of the way they play this game, right? When those defensive pairings can hold that puck in, when the Devils can keep the zone and even work a switch on the back end, not only is it good for opportunities to put the puck in the back of the net, but it's the way that you always keep yourself balanced when you're trying to get guys on and off the ice.
Absolutely. And like you said, that it was Siegenthaler that basically missed his guy coming through the ice, but it was a great play, so you
It
kind of
was. It just
you tip your
it
cap.
looks brutal.
It's those are going to happen,
Yeah.
and you're right. It's a matter of balancing your play. It's a matter of really fine tuning your pairings. I thought Brandon Smith and Luke Hughes had a very, very solid game, minus the penalty that Brandon Smith took. They're both pinching very well. You can see Luke Hughes getting a little more confident, a little more consistent on the way that
Mhm.
he wants to bring the puck up the ice and bang the puck off the boards for those outlet passes. So that to me is what I look for. You look for the mistakes in the previous games, defensively, and seeing how we're cleaning them up. Players that I'm
Yeah.
concerned about, I have one player that kind of made me a little nervous last night, and that's Eric Holla. I don't know if he's just still a little banged up, if he's still a little hurt. I told you, we were talking, back and forth via text during the game. He just didn't seem right to me. And that third line was buzzing too. Holtz was really buzzing with Mercer, and you love to see it. But Holla didn't look like he's 100%. And if
Yeah,
that's
I'm
the
gonna give
case,
him
go ahead.
I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt because he's coming back, right? We were concerned about Nico Hischier. He gets right back out there on the ice, so that was good with a couple of days off. I'll give him a couple of games here. To your point,
Yeah,
Holla got hit a couple, also took a couple of hits
he
in this
did.
game. So if he was, tentatively getting himself back out there, this was a hard game to do that in because in the neutral zone he got blown up. Luke Hughes got blown up a couple of times here as well. I do want to get to the physicality, but I'm willing to. I'll go another game here, right? And it's hard on a back to back, but we'll see. Washington is going to be on the same situation themselves as well. The other thing, just positively, before we talk about looking ahead to the Capitals game, Timo Meier, right? We said this going back to the previous game. He needed to play more consistent. Lindy Ruff praised him after the previous match. This one was, I think, his best performance of the season, offensively and defensively. Did a really nice job in the offensive zone, holding up the puck, allowing the changes to come, finding Jack Hughes in front of the net, the Alexander Holtz goal. That's because when that thing gets dumped in, Timo does what you need him to do. Yes, if he can get that thing in the net himself, great. But he knocks that down, lets it just drifts back to Alexander Holtz, and a nice little backhander from Holtz, by the way. He's very smooth on the puck. So I thought that Timo has stepped up in that way for this team. And I wondered if it's going to be a different version of production potentially for Timo Meier here, at least early in the year, because everybody else is flying. Everybody else is buzzing around the ice. Timo may just need to be, as you said before, the physical player, that presence on the boards, and a guy that is kind of the steady hand. That's what I texted you last night was maybe Timo is like the steady hand for this line and for this team that you can always rely on him to be in the right spot. Something we didn't see early, but these last couple of games have been really good for him.
I'm not sure if it's because he's back on the right wing. I think some of it could be because he's back on the right wing, a little more comfortable. But
Yeah.
all these guys are going to fall into the roles that they know they have to play to be a successful team in the NHL. We're a top 5 team. We're supposed to be a top 5 team, and I think there was a little bit of pressure in the first 3 games, and you saw it. And guys just really developing into the roles on the lines that they needed to be on. But you're absolutely right. Timo had his best game, in my opinion, last night against Montreal, and before that too. The game before that he played well as well. So I'm looking forward to seeing him tonight. Being consistent again on the defensive end, but more so, like you said, he's getting into those dirty areas. He's clearing the puck around the middle of the ice and around the blue paint. For the opposition, and that's why Holt scored the goal. Like you said, so. I'm really impressed with Timo. I'm really impressed with Holtz. I thought Holtz had a really great game. He was
Yeah.
flying up and down the ice. And Mercer's going to get on the scoring sheet. He's kind of snake bitten with not getting any goals or assists right now. I understand that. But, he's played a solid game, for not being on the score sheet. Sometimes, those intangibles, those things that you can do off the score sheet are really going to make an impact in the game. And he's done just that. And the same with the fourth line. I think Lazar
Yeah.
is
Yeah.
one of those unsung
Lazard's had a
heroes.
good game.
Yeah, he's one of those unsung heroes, where he's flying up and down the ice and he draws penalties. He's what I call the exact opposite of what Miles Wood was. Miles Wood was just flying all over the ice, crashing into the boards, taking some penalties, and it seems like Curtis Lazar is just flying up and down the ice and he's drawing those penalties, which is exactly what you want to be able to replace Miles Wood from last year. So
By the way, Brendan Smith gave you the both hand, which I think is a beautiful thing, right? Draws the penalty on the offensive end. The interference penalty that he took in the defensive zone, it is the way the NHL calls that play. But boy, when you watch it, you're like, I mean, I know you don't want anyone to get hurt here, but these are this is a soft institution of this new rule. Barely gets kind of in front of the skater there on that play as
and not
well.
for
Two
nothing.
things. Was
Not
it?
for nothing with that too. What I was going to ask you, it's something that was on my mind when I saw that penalty. Do you
Sure.
think the refs are actually looking into what players take the most penalties on NHL squads? I kind of do.
What is
They
in
go
watching for those moments for those specific players?
Yeah, meaning like, yeah, do they know who the top 5 penalty minute guys are on the teams, and they're looking on the way they play more so? It's I don't wanna believe it, but is it just a natural reaction from the officiating that, they're gonna know that these guys take penalties and they're gonna be a little more conscious of when they call penalties on them?
I think it's probably just more that it's an offensively driven game more than it's ever been, and so they're just aware of things that look like penalty. If it looks like a penalty, if it smells like a penalty, if it even looks like it lives in the neighborhood related to a penalty, they're probably likely to call it. And then matchups probably matter too, right? What is Brendan Smith? Well, he's a bottom line pairing defenseman, so we expect he's more likely to make a mistake than maybe even sometimes his line mate, even Luke Hughes, right? Well, Luke Hughes is a young, phenomenal, up and coming player, so maybe you're just not as inclined to blow the whistle on him. Not that we've seen incidents with him. If anything, sometimes he finds himself a little out of position. And
Yeah.
by the way, can I just note? So I don't, probably not, but I'm sure it has to. I mean, listen, NFL, when Tom Brady got sneezed on, did you automatically throw up, a roughing the passer? Yeah. Why? Well, it's Tom Brady. So you tend to look that way. I did have a note though. I got to see if I can track it down real quick. I made a note about, listen, I always jot down little things. I keep a running tab. This is no context provided, but Luke, a little bit a little bit too casual for my liking. He had an overall good game, but there was just an incident where he basically got it in the defensive zone and did one of those kind of soft passes, that didn't really get anywhere, came right back into their zone. So I just wanted you to know, man, I can be critical of Luke Hughes at least once a game or once every
He,
6 games.
I know exactly what you're talking about. That's when Nico took a big hit too. No, excuse me, Eric Holla took that big hit when Luke Hughes actually had an outlet pass and Holla took that big hit. I remember that. So listen, we've talked about this a bunch. Luke Hughes is going to be fine. He's going to make those mistakes, and a lot of Devils fans are very concerned that Brendan Smith is on a pairing with Luke Hughes. Lindy Ruff is not changing that. Lindy Ruff likes Brendan Smith. That's staying. That's going to be what it is, especially with Colin Miller being hurt now. Maybe we'll see Cal Foote step up if Brendan Smith has just an atrocious game, but Brendan Smith played fine.
I was gonna say, yeah.
He had a few great situations and great scenarios where he pinched extremely well on the blue line, and he
Yep.
kept that forecheck going for the Devils. So, I thought Brendan Smith had his best game, even though he took that penalty as this early season for the Devils.
Yeah, no, and it's again, I have no qualms with Smith so far this year. If we're gonna watch those pairings with a critical eye, he's been fine for me, and he's been a plus player for me in terms of overall and what you have expectations for him. The last two things I wanted to touch on here were first Tyler Toffoli,
Mm.
who, gosh darn it, man, that guy with a flick of the wrist. He is a player. We talked about like Dougie Hamilton early in the year. This is a guy that when you pass him that puck, he's ripping it, right? Same thing for Tyler Toffoli. I mean, not only does he show that burst and getting into the offensive zone and really just being a smart, right, high hockey IQ player, when these looks have come for him, it was the Timo Meyer down the left side, congestion in the offensive zone, held it in. It makes the hit on the boards. It goes to Jack right across ice. And I mean, it doesn't even look like effort for Tyler Toffoli. He had 2 goals in this game, just flicks it in. And historically, as they said on the broadcast, he's been a guy that when he goes to his new team and plays his old team, he tends to beat them up. He did
Yeah.
exactly that. And I'll even give him he got into it a little bit around the net when, frustrating the Montreal defenseman there. I think that he just has like this perfect combination of skill set. He's a little bit of an annoyance and an instigator at times. Like I think that he fits in perfectly to what the Devils needed to add into this top pairing.
Yeah, he doesn't care, man. He's gonna get to those areas. He's gonna nudge the defense of the opposition. But listen, good for him. Hat trick, in the 5th game as a Devil, getting those 3 goals, unbelievable. Even though
Yep.
it was an empty netter, it still counts as a hat trick. But you're absolutely right. You see the highlights and watching him play in Calgary a little, obviously last year, and how good he can be. Um, he's so quick with his stick handling and his
Yep.
wrists. It's unbelievable. That shot, epic. That one goal was epic. And I'm going to come back to what I said in preseason. He might beat what he had last year in his career high in the 34 goals. I thought he was going to be more of like the high 20s, but if he plays the way he's playing in the last 2 or 3 games, he could be up there and pushing 40 goals. I thought Timo Meyer was going to get more goals, but the way that I see things kind of playing out for Timo, I think he's going to be more of that 25 to 30 goal guy, which
Yeah.
is totally fine. Again, we're finding the roles that the Devils players need to have on their specific lines. But Tyler Toffoli, man, watching him play, I didn't realize how good he was. Obviously, you see it from afar, but now watching him consistently for the first 5 games as a Devil, my God, is he going to be a player?
No, and you mentioned there about Timo. Bad news for our fantasy league where we went with Timo, but it looks like Tyler might be the beneficiary. And then right back at the top, as we said, when you have a player like Jack who is ready to set you up, right, to have these easy looks. We didn't even get to because we talked about him a lot here. Jesper Bratt, he has been one of the most consistent players all the way starting this season so far. Didn't necessarily see it the same way with him getting goal scoring opportunities as frequently as we've seen in previous games, but I thought he had a really strong start there as well. The last thing I want to get to here, there was
Mhm.
two quick notes, but shout out to everybody that's joined us in here. It's kind of an impromptu live for us. We'll schedule these a little bit further out so you're aware of it. Special shout out to Chris B. Little insider, hockey jokes going on over there, and we'll keep those discreet. We're going to keep those discreet into ourselves, but I always love seeing everybody get in here. It's been a great combination between our post games, doing some of these full episodes as well, obviously. Okay. For me, two things. One, face-off circle. Hala won 7 out of his 9 faceoffs. Nico
Yeah.
Hischier won 13 out of his 19 faceoffs. Lazar stepped in, perfect 4-0. McLeod 13 out of 15 faceoffs won. The only blemish right now was Jack Hughes, who went just 1 out of 11. But by and large, so even with Jack Hughes struggling mightily inside the circle, the Devils were still a team that won the faceoff battle overall. I assume Jack is going to get there. Maybe you talk about potentially switching some things up in particular moments there so he doesn't have to necessarily get inside that circle. But for the most part, we're talking about a big strength for this team and something we want them to carry over to go along with special team strengths, right? Bad team from a power play standpoint in Montreal should be easy to kill those. So just overwhelming positives here. Last note that I want to ask you about, and you can touch on the circle if you want, but the biggest one here for me was the physicality.
Mm.
There's a lot of big hits in this game. There is a point when Nico gets hit, when Hala gets hit, when Holtz gets blown up, when Luke gets blown up. Early on, and this goes back to what you and I talked about in our last post game. I said, I want the Devils to play their game, but at some point, you may have to respond here. And then they got more power plays, and then they pulled away in the game. I think it's really hard to stay disciplined in these moments, but that was as close as I came to, hey, Ball, go hit somebody. And arguably, Ball was underwhelming for me in this particular game in totality.
Yeah, no, I agree with you. I think Ball struggled a little bit this game. He's a little unsure of where he wants to be defensively, and you can kind of see that. You saw it last night. Physicality is it's a tough one, right? Because
Yeah.
I want our guys to defend all our superstars, obviously, especially Nico with what happened with Nico the last few games. If anybody lays a hand on Jack, if anybody, throws Jack down to the ice, I don't care who you are on the Devils. I don't care if you're, Segenthal will get in someone's face, but I don't care if you're Dougie Hamilton, get in that guy's face, and that's really what I mean by the physicality. I'm okay with the way that we played physically, responding to what Montreal did in the first period.
Right.
I also think that, Montreal just wore themselves down. I think they came out trying to be overly physical, and the Devils just flew by them, in the second period with their speed. And again, to your point, staying disciplined, getting on those power plays. It's what we want to do. It's what we're always going to try and do, get more power plays because we're going to be one of the best in the league. Center ice position.
Yeah.
The only way that Jack Hughes isn't going to take those faceoffs is if he has Mercer on his wing who can take draws.
Right.
But right now, it's in the comments I see too. The Jack Toffoli and Timo line is buzzing. They're
How could you?
buzzing.
Yeah.
They're going to be playmakers. I agree with Steven in there in the comments saying that, Morgan saying that basically Toffoli is going to be an 80-point getter. I agree. I think Jack, Toffoli, and Jesper are going to be the point getters in this team. They're going to be the top three, just the way things are unfolding. But to your point with the faceoffs, Montreal led the league in faceoff wins coming into that game against the Devils. So you were looking at that like this could matter. It's
Yep.
getting the draws, winning the faceoffs, really containing the puck and having that puck possession. And the Devils dominated them.
Yeah.
So
63-36 in that category.
domination, man, and that's what's going to win a lot of games. And again, going back to what we said at the top of the episode, Montreal was tired. They're coming off
Yeah.
the latter half of a back-to-back, and we have to take advantage of that. We're the better team. We have to take advantage of that, and we really have to put, the pedal to the metal when it comes to just pressing with our speed, and it's all about puck possession. I don't know about you, but the Devils, to me, in that game, had the best puck possession, puck control,
Yeah.
and
Yep.
forecheck that I've seen out of the first 5 games.
I think the best thing that they did against tired legs for Montreal, and they should do this against any team regardless, is getting into that final zone. You mentioned the board play, right? Some turnovers, some strong possession. Listen, I've been watching with a critical eye the play of Bastion here. I was being tongue in cheek with Danny, but there were some moments when I think what he did well was hold the puck up long enough to get that reinforcement, to allow the line change. And then they did a great job. There were times when it was 5-on-5 and it looked like the Devils were on a power play because they were able to work the spacing. Those passes were crisp. And that to me, that's the next element of this offense, is all of a sudden using your speed to gain the zone, but then being smart. You have good stick handlers. You have great stick handlers, arguably. Let's go ahead and just dominate, wear down teams, even when they're at full strength, even when they're coming off multiple days rest. So yeah, there was a lot of things from this game that I think you want to carry over in a big way. And the Devils are going to get to do that immediately, taking on the Washington Capitals. If we go over and just take a quick look at this one, we'll be back in. Danny will be flying solo on the post game later tonight. Capitals are getting a goal and a half, or the Devils are laying a goal and a half, plus 100 if you want to go that route. The over-under is set at 6.5 in this game, Danny. On the money line, minus 238. What's your general impression of this one here? I saw eventually Ovechkin got on the scoreboard, but also did not take advantage of a penalty shot.
Ovechkin's gonna wake up. You know, he's had a little bit of a slow start, but he's
Next
Ovi.
game.
He's gonna wake up. But the Devils have to be very mindful of their offensive abilities. Obviously, the Capitals, they're an older team, you know, but they're gonna score some goals. They're gonna get into the open ice areas, and Ovechkin's gonna be dangerous on a power play. So it comes back to discipline tonight too. Both teams on the second half of a back-to-back. Washington losing to Toronto yesterday, so they're gonna be hungry for a W. You know, they know that everybody's predicting them not to be good in the Metro, and they want to obviously shut that narrative down. But Devils, again, they're a better team. You know, it's this comes down to if Akira is going to start, which we assume that he is. Vitek coming off of a back-to-back, you assume that Akira is going to be in net. I want to see him have a bounce-back game. You know, he wasn't great last game. So you want to see him really come up with a couple big saves. And I think this is a point. This game, this could be another Devils dominant game. You know, I want to see a 4-1 type of game. I want to see a 5-2 type of game. I think the Devils are very, very capable of doing that. It's just doing the same things, staying physical, not overly physical, utilizing our speed, really closing in on the puck, defensive side of the puck, and really quick outlet passes from the defensive zone through the neutral zone to generate some scoring chances.
Well, you can tell by the sound of the doorbell, it's time to wrap up another great post-game live here for the DPL Devils Puck Luck podcast. We'll keep an eye on that game. Like I said, be sure to tune in for Danny, who will be taking care of the post-game later tonight. Also, at the end of this week, if you remember, we did a great little draft inside of our team, right? We did the Devils internal draft. We're going to do every couple of weeks. We're going to take a look at that and see where we stand. We'll add up the points. I can't remember my roster, so that's going to be a fun one as well. Until next time, guys, man, let the Devils fly fast. Let them light the lamp. Let's get another double. See you next time.